The massive alien warship hung in Earth's orbit like a dark cloud promising storm. Its metallic surface reflected the pale sunlight, creating an ominous glow that matched the tension in the United Earth Council's emergency meeting room. Commander Gray stood on the bridge of his flagship, his four eyes narrowing as he studied the holographic display of Earth. The tall, gray-skinned alien commander had spent decades leading the Galactic Defense Fleet, but something about this planet bothered him deeply. His intelligence officers had brought him disturbing reports that made his scales bristle. "Lieutenant Stone," he called to his second-in-command, "show me those surveillance images again." The younger alien officer quickly brought up several pictures on the main screen. They showed humans in various settings, but what caught the commander's attention were the four-legged creatures accompanying them. Some were large, others small, but all of them showed sharp teeth when their mouths opened. "Unbelievable," Commander Gray muttered, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic echo of his species. "These humans not only live alongside predators, but seem to have some method of controlling them. This makes them far more dangerous than we initially thought." Lieutenant Stone nodded in agreement. "Sir, our analysts believe these creatures are used as biological weapons. Look at this footage." The screen changed to show a human throwing something, and one of these beasts racing to retrieve it. "Their training methods are beyond our understanding." Stone continued. "They've somehow turned natural hunting instincts into complete obedience." Commander Gray had seen enough. He straightened his ceremonial armor and made his decision. "Send the message. I want their leaders here for negotiations. They must understand their position in the galaxy." Down on Earth, Ambassador James sat in his office, reading the alien transmission for the third time. The message was clear. Earth could either submit to galactic protection or face the consequences. He absently reached down to scratch behind the ears of his golden retriever, Max, who lay peacefully at his feet. "Well, boy," he said to Max, "looks like we got some interesting meetings ahead of us." The diplomatic shuttle carried Ambassador James and his small team toward the alien flagship. Despite protests from his staff, he had insisted on bringing Max along. "If they're going to judge us," he had argued, "they should see us as we are." The shuttle docked with a gentle thud. As the airlock cycled, James could feel Max's tail wagging against his leg. The dogs seemed completely unbothered by their unusual surroundings. When the doors opened, they were met by a delegation of alien officers. The effect was immediate. The aliens recoiled at the sight of Max, their scaled skin changing color in what James assumed was their species' version of turning pale. "Ambassador," Commander Gray's voice boomed from behind his officers, "you dare bring one of your war beasts aboard my ship?" James struggled to keep a straight face. "War beast." He looked down at Max, who was sitting perfectly still, tongue lolling out in a friendly doggy smile. "Commander Gray, this is Max. He's not a war beast. He's what we call a dog, specifically a golden retriever. He's a companion animal." The alien commander's four eyes blinked in rapid succession. "Companion. You expect us to believe you keep apex predators as companions?" Before James could respond, Max did something that sent the alien crew into complete chaos. He laid down and rolled over, exposing his belly. "By the stars!" Lieutenant Stone shouted. "It's displaying its attack position." Several junior officers drew their weapons, while Commander Gray stepped forward, his voice filled with a mixture of horror and admiration. "Remarkable control, Ambassador. Your beast demonstrates complete submission to your will. Truly, humans are more formidable than we suspected." James opened his mouth to explain, then closed it again. How exactly does one explain to an advanced alien species that this terrifying war beast just wants belly rubs? Commander Gray raised his hand, silencing the nervous murmurs of his crew. "Come, Ambassador. We have much to discuss. Keep your beast close. We recognize this display of power." As they walked toward the ship's conference room, James caught Max giving him that goofy, happy look that golden retrievers are famous for. This was going to be a very interesting first contact indeed. The conference room aboard the alien flagship buzzed with tension. Ambassador James sat calmly at the large metallic table, while Max dozed peacefully at his feet. Across from them, Commander Gray paced back and forth, his metallic armor catching the light with each step. "Ambassador," Commander Gray finally spoke, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "Your presence here today will witness the unveiling of our greatest achievement. After seeing your war beast, I believe it's only fair to show you ours." James watched as Lieutenant Stone activated a large viewing screen. The image showed a massive containment facility deep within the ship. "Behold," Commander Gray said proudly, "Project Alpha. Our scientists spent 20 years creating the perfect biological weapon." The camera zoomed in, and James leaned forward, genuinely curious. Inside a reinforced chamber stood a creature that made him raise his eyebrows. It was easily 3 meters tall, with a muscular build that reminded him of a bear crossed with a lion. Its purple fur seemed to shimmer with a metallic quality, and its 6 legs ended in wickedly curved claws. "Impressive, isn't it?" Commander Gray's chest swelled with pride. "Enhanced strength, advanced intelligence, and natural armor plating. Nothing can stand against it." As if on cue, the creature in the containment chamber let out a roar that made the alien crew members stand straighter with pride. Max, disturbed from his nap, lifted his head and tilted it curiously at the sound. "And you control this creature?" James asked, trying to sound appropriately awed. "Control." Commander Gray laughed, a strange metallic sound. "It took our best handlers years just to feed it safely. We don't control it. We unleash it." James nodded slowly, beginning to understand the fundamental disconnect. He reached down to scratch Max's ears, earning concerned looks from the alien crew. "Commander, would you like to see how we control our companions?" James asked. Commander Gray's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You would demonstrate your power over your war beast." "Something like that." James smiled. He turned to Max. "Max, sit." Max immediately sat up, tail wagging. "Remarkable response time," Lieutenant Stone muttered, taking notes on a tablet. "Max, lie down." The golden retriever flopped onto his side. "The beast submits without resistance." An alien officer gasped. "Max, shake hands." When Max lifted his paw toward Commander Gray, several officers dove for cover. The commander himself stood his ground, though his scales had taken on a distinctly paler shade. "Ambassador," Commander Gray said stiffly, "your demonstration is impressive. But surely you can see that our creation is superior. It can tear through reinforced steel." James looked at the screen again, where the massive creature was now scratching itself behind one of its 3 pairs of ears. "That may be true, Commander," James said diplomatically, "but can it fetch?" "Fetch." The alien leader's translator seemed to struggle with the word. James pulled a tennis ball from his pocket. The aliens watched in fascination as he held it up. "Max, ready." The golden retriever jumped to his feet, tail wagging furiously. Several alien officers stepped back nervously. "This must be some kind of advanced combat stance," Lieutenant Stone whispered. James threw the ball down the length of the conference room. Max bounded after it, his nails clicking happily on the metal floor. He returned moments later, dropping the slightly wet tennis ball in James's hand. The aliens stared in stunned silence. "Your beast." Commander Gray finally spoke. "It retrieved the projectile without consuming or destroying it." "That's right," James said, pocketing the ball as Max sat down, looking pleased with himself. "And he'll do it for hours if you let him." Commander Gray turned to Lieutenant Stone. "Make a note. Humans have achieved perfect behavioral control over their war beasts. They can even suppress their hunting instincts at will." James opened his mouth to explain, then thought better of it. Sometimes, he was learning, it was better to let people, or aliens, keep their own perspective. "Now then," Commander Gray said, straightening his armor, "shall we discuss terms of Earth's surrender?" Max chose that moment to flop onto his back, paws in the air, tongue lolling out in a happy grin. The negotiations were going to be very interesting indeed. The negotiations had reached a delicate point when Max spotted the small maintenance drone rolling across the conference room floor. Before anyone could react, the golden retriever's tail began wagging with intense enthusiasm. Commander Gray immediately raised his hand to signal his guards. "The war beast has detected our surveillance equipment. Quick, activate the ship's defenses." No, James said hurriedly, but it was too late. Max had already bounded over to the small robot, playboying in front of it with his tail held high. The alien crew watched in fascinated horror as Max followed the drone around, occasionally pawing at it gently. The maintenance robot, programmed only for basic cleaning duties, continued its work while ignoring its new furry friend. "Fascinating," Lieutenant Stone mumbled, frantically taking notes. "It appears to be studying our technology's weaknesses." James rubbed his temples. "He just wants to play with it. Dogs are naturally curious and friendly." "Friendly?" Commander Gray's scales rippled with disbelief. "Ambassador, we have studied Earth's history. We know these creatures descended from wolves, pack hunters that could bring down prey many times their size." As if to completely undermine the commander's point, Max flopped down next to the drone and rolled onto his back, wiggling happily against the floor. "Incredible combat maneuver," one of the junior officers whispered. "It can attack from any position." The maintenance drone finally finished its cleaning route and rolled toward its charging station. Max stood up and looked at it sadly, then trotted back to James with a slightly dejected expression. "Your control is absolute," Commander Gray said, his voice filled with reluctant admiration. "Even when the beast wished to destroy our technology, you prevented it without speaking a word." James decided to try a different approach. "Commander, would you like to see what Max is really capable of?" The alien leader's 4 eyes narrowed. "You would demonstrate his combat capabilities." "Something like that." James reached into his pocket and pulled out a dog treat. The effect was immediate. Max's ears perked up, and his tail began wagging again. "Max, sit." The dog sat perfectly, eyes locked on the treat. "Shake hands." A paw was promptly offered. "Roll over." Max performed a perfect roll. "Play dead." The golden retriever flopped onto his side and stayed perfectly still, though his tail kept wagging. The alien crew watched this display with a mixture of awe and terror. Lieutenant Stone's tablet was making rapid beeping sounds as he struggled to document everything. "Each command activates a different attack pattern," Commander Gray mused. "The complexity of your training methods is remarkable." "Look," James said patiently, "I'm trying to show you that Max isn't dangerous. Here." He held out the treat to Commander Gray. "You give it to him." The alien commander recoiled slightly. "You would allow another to command your war beast. Just hold it out to him. Trust me." With visible reluctance, Commander Gray took the treat in his scaled hand. Max's tail wagging intensified, and he looked at the commander with the most gentle, hopeful expression a dog could manage. "This is clearly some kind of psychological warfare," Lieutenant Stone muttered. Slowly, very slowly, Commander Gray extended his hand with the treat. Max gently took it from his fingers, crunched it happily, and then gave the commander's hand a thankful lick. The entire alien crew gasped. It didn't bite my hand off," Commander Gray said, sounding genuinely surprised. "Of course not," James replied. "He's just thanking you." Max, pleased with his new friend, sat down next to Commander Gray and leaned against his leg. The alien leader stood perfectly still, as if afraid any movement might trigger an attack. "Commander," Lieutenant Stone said hesitantly, I believe the beast is showing affection." "Affection." Commander Gray looked down at the happy dog pressed against his leg. "But it's a predator, a weapon." James smiled. "No, Commander. He's a friend. That's all dogs have ever wanted to be, our friends." The commander was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, very slowly, he reached down and patted Max's head. Max responded by wagging his tail harder. "Perhaps," Commander Gray said thoughtfully. "We have much to learn about Earth after all." 3 hours into their meeting, the ship's translator finally gave up. The machine sparked slightly and displayed an error message after trying to convert the word belly rubs into the alien's language. "This is most disturbing," Lieutenant Stone said, studying the broken device. "The concept appears to be too alien for our technology to process." Commander Gray stood at the large viewing window, watching Earth rotate slowly below them. Behind him, Max had discovered a spare communication sphere that had rolled under a console and was now happily pushing it around with his nose. "Ambassador," the commander said, turning around, "we need to discuss our intelligence reports about your species." James nodded encouragingly. Maybe now they'd finally clear up some of these misunderstandings. "Our studies show that humans first allied with these beasts over 10,000 years ago," Commander Gray continued, pulling up historical images on the main screen. "During what you call the hunter-gatherer period." The screen showed cave paintings of humans hunting alongside wolves. "Ah yes," James smiled. "The early days of dog domestication." Domestication. Lieutenant Stone's scales flickered with confusion. "Our translators interpret this as the art of conquering wild spirits. Is this accurate?" James watched Max, who had given up on the sphere and was now sleeping peacefully on his back, paws twitching as he dreamed. "Not exactly," he said. "It's more like a friendship that developed over thousands of years." Commander Gray's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Friendship? With apex predators?" "Well, yes. We provided them with food and shelter. They provided us with companionship and help hunting." The aliens exchanged worried looks. "Let me understand this correctly," Commander Gray said slowly. "Your species deliberately approached dangerous pack hunters to offer them food." "Pretty much, yes. And this was before you developed advanced weapons." "That's right." Lieutenant Stone dropped his tablet. The clatter made Max wake up and look around curiously. "By the stars," Commander Gray whispered. "The implications are terrifying. Your species must be far more dangerous than we imagined. To look at a pack of hunting predators and think, yes, these could be friends. The sheer audacity." James tried not to sigh. "Commander, I think you're missing the point. It's not about danger or control. Look at Max. Does he look dangerous to you?" They all turned to look at the golden retriever who had found a cleaning rag and was now proudly carrying it around, occasionally shaking it playfully. "Ah yes," Lieutenant Stone said, making notes on a new tablet. "Combat practice with captured materials. Remarkable instincts." "No, he just likes to play," James explained. "Dogs have a natural desire to make us happy. They can sense our emotions, understand our gestures. They've evolved alongside us as companions." Commander Gray's expression grew even more concerned. "They can sense emotions. They've developed psychic abilities." "Not psychic," James hurried to correct him. "They're just very good at reading body language and tone of voice. Here, let me show you." He turned to Max. "Who's a good boy?" Max immediately dropped the rag and bounded over, tail wagging furiously. "You are. Yes, you are," James said in the universal dog praise voice that every human somehow knew instinctively. Max began dancing around happily, overcome with joy at this profound revelation that he was, indeed, a good boy. The alien crew watched this display with a mixture of fascination and horror. "The beast enters a berserker frenzy at specific vocal commands," Lieutenant Stone muttered into his tablet. "Capability for induced battle rage noted." Commander Gray raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador, I believe we need to revise our entire assessment of human civilization. Any species that can look at nature's perfect killing machines and decide to give them treats and praise is not to be underestimated." James looked down at Max, who had rolled onto his back again, silently requesting belly rubs. "Commander," he said carefully, "would you like to try giving him a belly rub?" The alien leader straightened his armor. "If you believe I am worthy of such a test of courage, Ambassador, I accept." And so, in what would later be recorded as a pivotal moment in human-alien relations, the mighty Commander Gray of the Galactic Defense Fleet learned about the sacred art of belly rubs from a very happy golden retriever. The ship's main observation deck had been cleared of all non-essential personnel. Commander Gray stood behind a hastily constructed shield barrier, with Lieutenant Stone and several nervous officers beside him. On the other side of the room, Ambassador James held a tennis ball. "Are your safety measures in place?" Commander Gray asked, checking his personal force field for the third time. "Commander, I promise this is completely safe," James said, trying not to smile. "This is just a simple demonstration of Max's training." Max sat perfectly still next to James, his eyes locked on the tennis ball with laser-like focus. His tail swept back and forth across the deck's polished floor. "Amazing," Lieutenant Stone whispered. "Even before the command is given, the beast maintains perfect combat readiness." James held up the ball. "Ready, Max?" The golden retriever's ears perked up, and his tail wagging intensified. "The beast enters its pre-attack stance," one of the junior officers reported, speaking into a recorder. "Note the increased tail motion, possibly a way to build momentum for the strike." James threw the ball. It bounced once and rolled under a console near the alien crew's barrier. Max charged after it at full speed. "Incoming," Commander Gray shouted. "Brace for impact." But Max simply stuck his nose under the console, wagged his tail harder, and pawed gently at the floor, trying to reach the ball. After a moment, he looked back at James with big, pleading eyes. "He's requesting tactical support," Lieutenant Stone said with admiration. "The coordination between beast and handler is remarkable." James walked over and reached under the console, retrieving the ball. Max danced around him happily. "Would anyone like to try throwing it?" James asked. The alien crew exchanged nervous looks. Finally, Commander Gray stepped forward. "I will accept this challenge," he said solemnly. "If this is to be a test of leadership, so be it." James handed him the ball. Max's attention immediately shifted to the commander, tail wagging with renewed enthusiasm. "The targeting system is incredibly precise," Lieutenant Stone noted. "It can track multiple potential throw vectors simultaneously." With ceremonial gravity, Commander Gray raised the ball. Max's eyes followed it like a heat-seeking missile. "What is the proper throwing protocol?" the commander asked. "Just toss it anywhere," James said. "He'll fetch it back." Commander Gray drew himself up to his full height and threw the ball with perfect military precision. It sailed across the room in a beautiful arc. Max bounded after it joyfully, caught it in midair, and trotted back to Commander Gray. The alien leader stood perfectly still as the dog dropped the slightly wet tennis ball at his feet and looked up expectantly. "The beast," Commander Gray said slowly, "it returns the projectile instead of destroying it." "That's right," James nodded. "That's the whole game. You throw, he brings it back." "But what is the tactical advantage?" "There isn't one. It's just fun." The entire alien crew went silent, processing this concept. Fun. Lieutenant Stone's scales changed color in confusion. "You train these magnificent predators for fun." Max nudged the ball with his nose, looking up at Commander Gray hopefully. "He wants you to throw it again," James explained. "Again." The commander looked bewildered. "But we've already proven the retrieval capability. He'll do this as long as you want to throw. Dogs love to play." Commander Gray picked up the ball, studying it thoughtfully. Then, with slightly less ceremony than before, he threw it again. Max cheerfully retrieved it once more. This time, when he returned, he gave a playful playbow before dropping the ball. "Fascinating," Lieutenant Stone muttered. "The beast shows no sign of tiring. Its endurance must be extraordinary." "Watch this," James said. He turned to Max. Max, spin. Max spun in a circle. High five. Max raised his paw. Play dead. Max flopped over dramatically. The alien crew watched in stunned silence as Max performed trick after trick, each one causing more confusion among their ranks. These commands, Commander Gray said finally, they serve no combat purpose at all, do they? James shook his head. They're just tricks. Things we teach dogs to make them happy and keep them mentally active. Commander Gray looked down at Max, who had rolled over for belly rubs again. Lieutenant, he said quietly, I believe we need to completely rewrite our report on Earth's civilization. Any species that can turn the galaxy's most efficient predators into playful companions is clearly operating on a level we have yet to understand. Max, unaware of his role in reshaping galactic diplomacy, just wagged his tail and hoped for another game of fetch. The peaceful demonstration was interrupted by blaring alarms that made Max's ears perk up. Red lights flashed across the observation deck as Lieutenant Stone rushed to the command console. Commander, he shouted, scales flashing with alarm colors. 3 pirate vessels just dropped out of hyperspace. They're targeting both our ship and the Earth delegation's vessel. Commander Gray's 4 eyes narrowed. Space pirates. They must have detected our diplomatic meeting and thought it would be an easy target. He turned to James. Ambassador, I suggest you and your war beast take shelter in our secure quarters. Before James could respond, Max was already alert, his notes high in the air and ears forward. Years of evolution had given dogs an incredible ability to sense tension and respond to it. He seems to sense something, Lieutenant Stone observed. Dogs have very sharp senses, James explained. Much better than humans, actually. They can hear and smell things we can't. Commander Gray's expression changed. Ambassador, are you suggesting your beast could help with ship security? A loud bang echoed through the ship as the pirates' first shot hit their shields. Max barked once, looking toward a seemingly empty corridor. Impossible, Lieutenant Stone said, checking his sensors. There's nothing there. But Max kept staring, his tail straight and alert instead of its usual happy wag. James had seen this posture before. It was the same way Max acted when he heard someone in their backyard at night. I suggest we check that corridor, James said quietly. Commander Gray hesitated only a moment before nodding to his security team. They approached the corridor with weapons ready. Suddenly, the air shimmed and 3 figures appeared, pirates with cloaking devices trying to sneak aboard. Intruders, Commander Gray shouted, but Max was already in action. Instead of attacking, as the aliens probably expected, Max began barking happily and running circles around the startled pirates. His tail wagged as he tried to make new friends, completely destroying any chance they had of staying hidden. The beast's tactics are brilliant, Lieutenant Stone exclaimed. It's making it impossible for them to maintain stealth. The security team quickly apprehended the confused pirates, who seemed more baffled by the friendly dog than afraid of their captors. There might be more, Commander Gray said grimly. Our sensors are having trouble with their cloaking technology. James looked at Max. Want to go for a walk, boy? Max's tail began wagging even harder at the magical W word. For the next hour, Max led them through the ship's corridors, happily discovering hidden pirates like it was the world's best game of hide and seek. Each time he found someone, he'd wag his tail and try to make friends, completely ruining their stealth operations. Your beast's strategy is remarkable, Commander Gray said as they caught the last group. It defeats our enemies not with violence, but by making their tactical advantages useless. James tried again to explain. He's not trying to defeat anyone. He just wants to say hello. Dogs are naturally friendly. They want to meet everyone they see. The commander watched as Max received pets from both his security team and the handcuffed pirates. You mean to tell me that this ultimate weapon just wants to be friends? That's what makes dogs special, James said. They naturally love everyone, It's not training or control, it's just who they are. The last pirate ship fled as their boarding teams were captured. In the aftermath, Commander Gray stood on his bridge, watching Max accept belly rubs from his formerly terrified crew. "Lieutenant," he said thoughtfully, "make a note in our report. Earth's greatest weapon is not their technology or their military might. It's their ability to take one of nature's most efficient predators and turn it into something that defeats enemies through friendship." "Should we be worried about this power?" Lieutenant Stone asked. Commander Gray watched as Max brought his favorite tennis ball to a group of security officers, starting an impromptu game of fetch. "No," he said finally. "I think perhaps we should try to learn from it instead. Any species that can achieve this." He gestured to where Max was now teaching his crew about the joy of belly rubs. "Clearly has much to teach us about the real meaning of civilization." The commander smiled slightly as Max brought the ball to him next. "Perhaps," he said, picking up the ball, "it's time for the galaxy to learn about the power of being a good boy." 1 month after the pirate incident, the observation deck of the alien flagship had changed dramatically. Gone were the weapon racks and tactical displays. Instead, there were several tennis balls, chew toys, and even a small bed with Max written on it in both human and alien script. Commander Gray stood at his usual spot by the viewing window, but his once pristine ceremonial armor now had several dog hair-covered spots. He didn't seem to mind. "Ambassador," he said, watching Earth rotate below, "our High Command has reviewed our reports about your civilization. They were particularly interested in our findings about Earth's companion creatures." James nodded, scratching Max behind the ears. The golden retriever was wearing a specially made collar with both Earth diplomatic insignia and alien military honors, apparently being a good boy qualified for several galactic medals. "The concept of friendship with other species has caused quite a stir in the galactic community," Lieutenant Stone added, looking up from his tablet. His scales now changed to happy colors whenever Max approached him. "Many worlds are fascinated by the idea." Max, hearing his favorite lieutenant's voice, trotted over to give him a friendly nose bump. Stone had finally stopped flinching at this greeting and even kept treats in his pocket now. "Several alien species have requested permission to visit Earth," Commander Gray continued. "They wish to learn about this companionship concept, particularly about these, what did you call them? Belly rubs." James smiled, remembering how the mighty alien commander had first trembled at the idea of touching Max's belly. Now the commander was practically a professional at it. "Of course, there are still some concerns," Lieutenant Stone said, offering Max a treat with practiced ease. "Some worlds worry that humans might be too powerful. After all, any species that can make friends with predators is clearly too friendly to be a threat." Commander Gray finished. "That's what I told High Command. Look at what happened with the pirates. Earth's greatest weapon didn't hurt anyone. It just made friends with them." As if to demonstrate this point, Max brought his favorite tennis ball to a young alien officer who had previously been terrified of him. The officer, now well trained in the art of fetch, threw it without hesitation. "We're establishing a new diplomatic program," Commander Gray announced. "Earth will help teach other worlds about companionship with animals. We believe this could revolutionize galactic society. And we've made some discoveries of our own," Lieutenant Stone added excitedly. "Remember our biological weapon project? Well," he pressed a button, and a screen showed their fearsome creature from the containment facility. It was now playing with a large rubber ball, looking remarkably like an oversized puppy. "Turns out," Stone said, his scales turning slightly pink with embarrassment, "it just wanted to play too. We just never tried being friendly with it before." James watched as Max finished his game of fetch and flopped down for a nap, surrounded by alien officers who had learned to love him. The sight of mighty galactic warriors tiptoeing around to avoid waking a sleeping dog was something he never thought he'd see. "There's one more thing," Commander Gray said, reaching into his armor. He pulled out a small, slightly wet tennis ball. High Command has officially classified Earth dogs as Galactic Peace Ambassadors. Max was the first to receive the title. Max's ears perked up at his name, but he was too comfortable to move from his nap spot. It turns out, the commander continued, looking at the tennis ball with affection, that the most powerful force in the galaxy isn't advanced weapons or superior technology. It's the ability to look at something different from yourself and choose to be its friend. James nodded, watching as his golden retriever snoozed peacefully among his alien friends. That's what dogs have been teaching us all along. Indeed, Commander Gray said softly. Your civilization may have invented spaceships, but your dogs taught you something far more important, how to love unconditionally. As if agreeing, Max let out a gentle snore, causing several alien officers to coo in delight. And so, in the vastness of space, aboard a mighty alien warship, Earth's first galactic peace treaty was secured not through force or fear, but through the simple, loving heart of a golden retriever who just wanted to be everyone's friend. Commander Gray looked at the sleeping dog one last time and smiled. Lieutenant, he said, make a final note in our report. The humans were right. He is, indeed, a very good boy.